Okay, now let's come back to this part, e-commerce. Originally, I prepared a short video for your view, but apparently the superlink disappears. Now let's move on to next part, the dispute settlement. That's the function of the DSM and the DSU. It's also a way of implement WTO rules. The fourth is trade policy review. Just now I asked you a question. What's the function of the TPRM? The purpose of the TPRM is what? Yes. Regular review of the laws and policies of each member. Review. Okay. Next part, cooperation with other organizations. Cooperation with other organizations. For example, the UN, United Nations. What's the relationship between WTO and the United Nations? This. And NGOs. NGOs means non-government organizations. Non-governmental organizations. They are private civil society organizations. For example, an organization for environmental protection. Environmental protection. Okay. Environmental law. Okay. These kind of organizations are rather powerful overseas, abroad. In China, it's not like that. In China, China does not have strong NGOs or private societies. They will have to be subject to the regulation of the government. For example, even the China Society of International Economic Law, under the auspices of Xiamen University, will have to be subject to the regulation of the Ministry of Civil Affairs. Ministry of Civil Affairs, yeah. There's even a legal dispute between this civil organization and the Ministry of Civil Affairs. Okay, the last function is technical assistance to developing countries. You know what? If you are a country or a state, would you like to be a developed one or a developing one? Developing one? Developed one. Okay. There's no fixed answer to that. But you know what? In WTO, if you are a developing country, you will enjoy a lot of benefits and advantages and privileges. Because this organization has a function to assist those developing ones, developing country members. China is the largest developing country in this world, and it enjoys a lot of benefits from the WTO, this organization. If China would like to export its products to the United States or to the EU, European Union, those developed country members have an obligation to give China or developing countries GSP, you still remember? It's a kind of privilege, generalized system of preference. I mentioned this in the general course. Basically, it's for the reduction of tariffs. What about the countries in Africa? Those African countries. They also need help from this organization, as you can see. Technical assistance. What does technical assistance mean? Because they have nothing. They know nothing about the knowledge of WTO. You know what I'm doing? I'm telling you what WTO is about. In African countries, there are no expertise. There are no talents, or we say talents, who know this thing. They don't know nothing about the WTO. We need to offer help to them. The WTO offers help to those countries. Although right now, the United States is depriving China of the PNTR, permanent normal trade relations. Permanent normal trade relations. It is granted by the Clinton administration. With this privilege, we say, China has the opportunity to enter WTO. Right now, the US is trying to deprive China of this thing, PNTR. Okay, then let's move on to section 3, the membership of the WTO. First thing you need to know is separate customs territories. In WTO, we have 3 separate customs territories. They are Hong Kong, Macau, and Chinese Taipei. This kind of membership is not a kind of full membership. Full membership. In Chinese, it's called 正式成员. Okay. And there's an interesting point regarding the EU and its members. How many members are there in EU? 27-ish. 27-ish. And plus EU. Then that would make 28. In Europe, there are 28 members in the WTO. There's a question and a quiz for you. There's a quiz for you. It's known that EU is a full member of the WTO. Germany and France are members of the EU. Query, or the question is Germany a full member of the WTO?
Yes.
No.
Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, as you can see. Although EU act and speak for all EU members, but Germany, France, all those EU members are also full members of the WTO. You need to remember that.
是脱欧了吗？
Germany, France, Great Britain leaves the EU. Even so, Great Britain is also a full member of the WTO, right? Is Great Britain still a member of Europe?
No.
Euro.
Euro. No.
Yes. Because Europe is a fixed concept. Although UK is not a member of the EU, but it is a member of the Europe, of course. Right now, Trump administration is destroying the United States. And you know what's the biggest harm to the United States? The betrayal of the United States against Ukraine. I think the biggest damage to the United States is the US dollars. Why? You know, nowadays, the sovereign currencies, I mean, for example, US dollars, British pounds, sterlings, something like that, and RMB. All those currencies, sovereign currencies, are backed by the credit of these sovereignties. Credit. Each country has its own credit. If the United States withdraw its support for Ukraine, then the EU will have to adopt a policy of strategic autonomy. He will stand up for itself. That's why the euros is now rising. If you are following up the foreign exchange rate or the foreign exchange market, you will know that right now euros is rising. Have you noticed that? EU, I mean the euros, this one. Right now, this one is rising. US dollars is depreciating. Okay, let's move on to the subsection B, accession. There are two ways of acceding to WTO. First one is original accession. Second one is negotiated accession. Which approach is for China? The latter one, right? Negotiated accession, right, good. Then, the result of the negotiation is called China's Protocol of Accession. China's Protocol of Accession. Protocols of Accession. For China, it's called China's Protocol of Accession. This instrument is an integral part of the WTO agreement. And it can also generate specific rights and obligations for China. What are included in this China's Protocol of Accession? Here. Market access concessions and commitments, which means China needs to open its own markets to foreign products, foreign services, foreign service suppliers. This is the first one. And what else? WTO plus obligations. Still remember this? How to read this? WTO plus obligations or rights. WTO plus obligations. WTO minus rights. That means China will shoulder more responsibilities if you want to enter WTO. iPhone 10 Plus, that means a bigger one, right? Minus, plus. Accession part. Okay, then let's move on to the next part. It's about a special and differential treatment. You know, all WTO agreements have provisions providing for special and differential treatment for developing country members. This is a type of provisions I mentioned. It's a benefit or advantage for developing countries. What does this kind of S and D, special and differential treatment, means? For example, the TFA, this agreement, Trade Facilitation Agreement, you still have memory of that? TFA entered into force in 2017. This agreement deals with customs formalities and procedures. They are border measures or behind the border measures. You remember? Border measures, right? Good. And this agreement imposes obligations on every WTO member. But for those in Africa, African countries, they are, we say, they can stop to fulfill the obligations for a period, for a transitional period of time. For example, like here. Look at here. Self-designate the implementation periods of their commitments under the TFA and identify their technical assistance needs. For example, in this TFA, China will have to honor the obligations, the date when this TFA enters into force. But if I'm, for example, Zimbabwe, a country in Africa, maybe it will have 5 years transitional period, which means Zimbabwe will have to honor the obligations by TFA in 5 years. This is a transition period. And this year is decided by which country? By Zimbabwe itself. Right? And what help do you need? Technical assistance. You can always tell us, what's your need? What help do you need? Technical assistance needs. You can also put them up. Tell us, what's your need? Then we will fulfill your needs. What's this for? What does this stand for? Flexibility. Special and differential treatment reflects a flexibility, which means the developing country members can self-designate the transitional period, for example, the 5 years. And the developing countries can also decide what kind of help or needs he needs. This is a kind of flexibility. Another example about CPTPP. Question, is China a member of CPTPP now? Huh? Is China now a member of CPTPP? Yes or no? No. Why not?
Not allowed.
Exactly. China is not allowed. We use passive tense, okay? This organization does not allow China to enter it. Why? Why not? Yes. Because is this CPTPP flexible or not? This is flexibility, right? No. It has hard requirements. Hard. You have to fulfill the requirements of CPTPP. Only after that you can be a member of that. Is China able to fulfill the requirements imposed by CPTPP? No. Originally, the WTO also has hard requirements for China. And that's why we experienced 15 years of negotiation before China becomes a member of WTO, right? But this is flexible. WTO is flexible. But CPTPP, not flexible. Is China a member of RCEP? Yes or no? Yes, good. Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. It's an agreement signed between Southeast Asian countries and China, Japan, Korea. ASEAN plus China, Japan, and Korea. Members to RCEP. This one is also flexible, which means if it's flexible, then China can be a member to it. If it's hard, if there are hard requirements, then it will become difficult. But China is still trying to be a member of CPTPP. What are the disadvantages of China to be a member of CPTPP? Two main problems. First problem is about subsidies.
老师，这种专有的名词能不能带一个中文的翻译？
补贴。
yes，真的听不懂。
补贴。
我们来不及搜。
The second problem is What? IPs, intellectual property rights, transfer of IPs, forcible transfer of IPs. For example, there is a foreign company who would like to invest in China. China will raise some requirements. You have to transfer your IPs to us. Otherwise, you are not allowed to make an investment in China. You still know that? Subsidies, 补贴. Yeah. And the forcible transfer of IPs. You do not want to sell the IPs to me, but I force you to sell that IPs to me. Otherwise, you're not allowed to make an investment in China. Got it? Because of these two problems, China cannot be a member of CPTPP. Okay, now let's move on to this part, waivers and opt-outs. What does waiver mean? Waiver mean? Waiver means exemption. Yes, in Chinese it's called 豁免. Waiver. Compulsory license. For example, I'll try to explain or elaborate the compulsory license in the field of intellectual property rights protection. Okay. What does compulsory license mean? Yes. In Chinese, it's called 强制许可. What does it mean? For example, there will always be IP holders, right? For example, I invented a medicine or drug to fight against HIV, AIDS, or leukemia. Leukemia, 白血病. Then I have the patent. Still remember the patent? Yes, I have a patent. If you want to produce these medicines, you will have to get my permit. You will have to pay me for the using of these patents, right? What does compulsory license? This kind of activity is called licensing. Compulsory license means that China's government choose and say, these diseases need to be cured because it affects public health. So we will not pay you. And you must let me use your patent. I will produce all these medicines. Why? Because which country is the biggest country to produce generic medicine? Generic medicine, 仿制药. Yes, India. But there's one important thing for generic medicine. They can only be used in India, this country. Cannot be exported to China, to other countries. Only in India. Can only be used in India. Because the Indian government has used this compulsory license without paying the patent holder money for the manufacturing of a generic medicine. But this medicine can only be used in India, this country, can never be exported to other countries. You know, you still remember the famous film called I'm Not the Drug God. That's a literally translation. You know, the name of the film is called Dying. I forgot the name. Yeah, Dying to Survive, not Dying to Survive. For example, in the spoken part of IELTS test or TOEFL test, could you please tell us a movie that impressed you? You can always introduce this movie. It's also related to compulsory lessons. Now I will give you an introduction of this movie. Okay. Later, after class, I will send the materials into the WeChat group. But now I will read this story for you. Listen. Okay. This is a Chinese realistic themed drama released in 2018. Realistic themed drama released in 2018. The film is based on a real event and recounts the story of a small-time protagonist portrayed by Xu Zheng, who starts as the owner of a health supplement store and gradually evolves into the lifeline for leukemia patients. Leukemia patients. The genuine anti-leukemia drugs are prohibitively expensive, means extremely expensive. Right? And many patients are unable to afford them. The patients do not have enough money to pay for the medicine, the genuine medicine. The protagonist fortuitously discovers that there are generic drugs. Generic drugs. In India, at a very low price, and subsequently he begins to smuggling those generic medicine into China. Yeah, exactly, 走私. Thus he becomes the drug god in the eyes of the patients. But meanwhile, he also confronts pressure from the genuine drug manufacturers and the police, because the generic drugs produced under compulsory licensing can only be sold within the country where the compulsory license is granted. And smuggling generic drugs severely infringes upon the interests of the patent holders. This film profoundly reflects the struggles and choices of ordinary individuals in predicaments, not only provoking the audience's contemplation on life, morality, and law, but also promoting the reform of China's legal system, of China's medical system. Okay, that's the story about Dying to Survive. I am not the drug god. Okay. I think this concludes today's course. Okay. I will see you next week.